They were in paradise until it turned into hell. A dream proposal, a blood-soaked tragedy, and a man who gave up everything, except his need for revenge. Spoilers ahead. Mitch Rapp was living the perfect moment. He and his longtime girlfriend Katrina Harper were on a romantic getaway in the breathtaking coastal beauty of Ibiza, Spain. The sun was golden, the ocean shimmering, and Mitch had a secret gleaming around his neck, a delicate ring disguised as a necklace pendant, waiting for just the right moment. After years together, he was finally going to propose. With the Mediterranean breeze in the background and Katrina's laughter lighting up the air, Mitch dropped to one knee on the beach and asked the love of his life to marry him. She said yes, and for a moment, the world stood still in perfection. To celebrate, Mitch left Katrina enjoying the waves while he headed up to a nearby beachside bar to grab them both a drink. His heart was full, his hands were shaking slightly, not from nerves anymore, but from joy. He had just proposed. She had said yes. Life had never felt more certain. But that perfect moment, that fragile bubble of happiness, burst in an instant. Without warning, a group of terrorists stormed the beach, spraying bullets into the crowd. Chaos erupted. People screamed. Bodies dropped. Mitch was shot, and in the chaos, Katrina was killed, her life ripped away in front of him. That day didn't just shatter his heart. It destroyed the man he used to be. 18 months later, Mitch was unrecognizable. No longer a carefree fiancé. He was a man consumed by a singular, burning purpose: revenge. He isolated himself, dedicating every ounce of his energy to training, hand-to-hand combat, weapons, endurance, languages, anything that would turn him into a ghost, a weapon. He studied terrorist networks, tracked chatter, and eventually identified the group responsible for the attack that killed Katrina. But rather than storm in with guns blazing, Mitch took a darker, smarter path. He slipped into the shadows and infiltrated the terrorist cell, slowly gaining their trust while his hatred boiled just beneath the surface. His goal? Get close to their leader, Adnan. Mitch posed as an angry, radicalized American with a grudge against the West, feeding Adnan lies and venom, pretending to want in. While preparing for the mission, Mitch's anger often slipped through. During one sparring match at the training camp, he nearly killed his opponent, a reminder that his rage wasn't something he could always control. What Mitch didn't know was that someone else had their eyes on him. The CIA had picked up on his activities and were tracking him closely, especially once he made direct contact with Adnan, one of their high-priority targets. Eventually, Mitch's cover held long enough to be granted an invitation to meet Adnan in person at a secure compound in Libya. This was it. He was finally face-to-face with the man responsible for Katrina's death. But fate, as usual, had other plans. Just as Mitch prepared to strike, a CIA-backed Special Forces team raided the compound, killing Adnan in the assault before Mitch could lay a finger on him. The man who had trained, bled, and risked everything for this one moment was robbed of it by his own government. In a blind rage, he stabbed the lifeless body of one of the fallen terrorists over and over, as if punishing fate itself, until U.S. soldiers dragged him off. At CIA headquarters, Mitch wasn't treated like a hero. He was interrogated for going off the grid and putting operations at risk. But when the dust settled, they had to admit something. Mitch had done what no official agent had managed to do. He found Adnan. He infiltrated his network. He brought back intelligence. Reckless? Yes. Effective? Absolutely. Rather than punish him, CIA Deputy Director Irene Kennedy offered Mitch a chance to channel his destructive potential into something useful. She invited him to join Orion, a shadowy Black Ops unit that dealt with threats the world would never hear about. Of course, that offer came with one major condition. He had to survive training with Stan Hurley. Stan was an old-school Cold War warrior, a former Navy SEAL, and someone who believed in control above all else. Where Mitch brought emotion, Stan brought discipline. He didn't care about Mitch's past, his grief, or even his success with Adnan. All that mattered was whether Mitch could operate without losing control. Training was brutal. Mitch clashed with Victor, one of Stan's best recruits, and beat him in a sparring match. But Stan wasn't impressed with brute force. He wanted mental sharpness, restraint, and the ability to make the right call when it counted. In one particularly cruel exercise, trainees had to eliminate targets using tasers, but they'd be punished with electric shocks if they attacked the wrong person. When Mitch saw a photo of Adnan, his rage took over again. Despite the shocks coursing through his body, he kept going until Adnan's image was down. Irene and Stan watched from behind a glass wall, disappointed, but quietly impressed. Mitch was flawed, but relentless. Elsewhere, bigger problems were brewing. Irene and U.S. officials visited the Iranian embassy in London to question Minister Baris about stolen plutonium, nuclear material that had gone missing from a defunct Russian facility. Tensions were high. The suspicion was that Iranian hardliners, unhappy with the nuclear deal with the U.S., might be involved. But Baris denied everything with a politician's smirk and diplomatic doublespeak. Meanwhile, in Poland, a black market deal went sideways. A mysterious figure known only as Ghost arrived to purchase the stolen plutonium. The police, suspicious of his crew's shady van, intervened. Bad idea. Ghost calmly killed both the officers and the Russian dealers, leaving no witnesses behind and vanishing into the crowd without a trace. It was clean, professional, terrifying. Back in Virginia, Stan Hurley watched the surveillance footage of the massacre and froze. He recognized the man. Ghost wasn't just any criminal. He was a former Orion operative, trained by Stan himself. Presumed dead after a failed mission years ago, Ghost was not only alive, he was selling nukes. With no time to waste, Irene assigned Stan and his team to stop Ghost and an Iranian middleman named Sharif. The mission would take them to Istanbul, where the next deal was set to go down. There, the team met with a local asset, a sharp and capable agent named Annika. While surveilling Sharif and his bodyguard Kamal, Mitch intentionally bumped into Kamal, planting a tracker under the guise of clumsy tourist behavior. Mission engaged. Stan moved to take down a military official helping Sharif, while Mitch and Victor followed the leads to Ghost. But Ghost recognized Victor instantly. Before they could react, he killed Victor and escaped, taking Sharif with him. The operation was blown. Stan ordered a retreat, but Mitch wasn't done. Disobeying direct orders again, he hunted down Kamal, roughed him up, and forced him to reveal Sharif's location. Mitch then stormed Sharif's apartment alone, took out his guards, and executed Sharif on the spot. He didn't leave empty-handed. Sharif's laptop might hold the key to tracking Ghost and stopping whatever plan was unfolding next. Even after Mitch had accomplished what seemed like a major victory, eliminating Sharif and securing his laptop, Stan Hurley wasn't exactly in a congratulatory mood. To Hurley, Mitch's actions weren't bold, they were reckless. He saw Mitch as a loose cannon, someone who could unravel an entire mission in the blink of an impulsive decision. But Mitch wasn't losing sleep over it. Orders were optional when your fuel was revenge. Soon after, Irene Kennedy brought the team back into focus. Ghost had successfully secured the plutonium, and now all signs pointed to his plan to assemble a working nuclear weapon. But Ghost wasn't a one-man bomb factory. He needed a nuclear physicist. Their intel led them to Rome, where several scientists were being targeted and pressured to assist in the creation of the device. It was a race against time. In Rome, Mitch made a discovery that caught even him off guard. His colleague and field partner, Annika, wasn't just a friendly foreign agent. She was a spy, working for Iran. But not for the extremists. She was part of the mainstream Iranian intelligence community, trying to prevent the hardliners from getting their hands on nuclear weapons. It wasn't betrayal. It was a mess of political layers stacked on top of a ticking bomb. Annika explained her mission, and though trust didn't come easy to Mitch, they didn't have the luxury of distrust. Elsewhere, behind closed doors, Minister Baris, the same man who previously denied any knowledge of the plutonium, was having a quiet meeting with Ghost. The truth was now undeniable. Baris had thrown in with Ghost. The plan was clear. Together, they would build the bomb and launch an attack on the United States. Baris wanted power. Ghost wanted destruction and revenge. It was a match made in hell. Back in Rome, Stan Hurley was hunting leads of his own. He met with an old friend and former agent, Asani, who had intel that could unravel everything. But just as Asani began revealing Minister Baris's role in the plot, a single shot silenced him forever. Ghost had arrived, and with his signature calm brutality, he captured Hurley and vanished once again. Dragged to Ghost's underground hideout, Hurley now faced the very monster he had once trained. But Ghost wasn't here to reminisce. He had a twisted agenda: to torture Hurley, break him mentally, and make him witness the downfall of the very country he once swore to protect. Ghost's motivations weren't all patriotic betrayal. There was pettiness too. He felt betrayed by his dishonorable discharge from the military, and now, after risking his life for his country, he wanted to burn it all down. But then, in a chilling twist, Ghost admitted that revenge wasn't the whole story. He was also in it for the money. Lots of it. That part hit Hurley harder than the torture. Watching his former protege, a man once driven by honor, now reduced to a greedy mercenary, infuriated him more than the physical pain. While Mitch and Annika tracked Ghost's underground facility, Irene kept the special forces on high alert, quietly monitoring Mitch's progress. Unofficially, she was betting on him. And frankly, who wouldn't? Meanwhile, Ghost wasn't just torturing Hurley. He was savoring it. Nail by nail, he tried to break him, but Hurley remained stone-faced and silent. When Minister Baris grew impatient and demanded results, Ghost responded by shooting Baris in cold blood, wiping out his henchmen too, and activating the nuclear bomb. Ghost didn't want politics. He wanted fire. Mitch and Annika located Ghost's base hidden beneath the city. The plan was simple and reckless. Annika would go in first, and Mitch would deal with Ghost's men outside. Unsurprisingly, the henchmen weren't exactly amateurs. Mitch held his own, but he was badly outnumbered. Just as things were tipping toward disaster, special forces finally arrived, guns blazing, evening the odds. Mitch pushed through, found Hurley, battered, bloodied, but alive, and freed him. But Hurley, always the soldier, insisted Mitch leave him behind and go stop Ghost before it was too late. Inside, Ghost had taken Annika hostage. In a moment of brutal courage, Annika turned Ghost's own weapon on herself, ending her life and hoping to give Mitch the shot he needed. But Ghost slipped away again, boarding a speedboat with a nuclear device. This wasn't over. Not yet. Hurley and Mitch put the pieces together. Ghost's target was the U.S. Navy's 6th Fleet, anchored nearby. It would be a devastating kamikaze strike, one that could spark a global war. The CIA scrambled to alert the fleet while Mitch launched into pursuit, adrenaline and fury carrying him across the water. On the open sea, Mitch caught up to Ghost. The final confrontation was brutal, but this time, Mitch didn't fail. He killed Ghost, seized control of the boat, and changed course, steering it away from the 6th Fleet. With no time to disable the device, Mitch made the only call he could. He hurled the nuclear weapon into the ocean. Seconds later, a rescue chopper sent by Irene lifted him off the boat. The explosion was enormous. The device detonated underwater, creating a massive shockwave that caused a sinkhole and sent a towering tsunami toward the fleet. But somehow, miraculously, the fleet survived. Mitch had done the impossible, again. In the aftermath, Hurley recovered from his injuries, and when Irene asked about Mitch's whereabouts, he offered a shrug and a half-smile, revealing nothing. She didn't press further. Somewhere far from the chaos, in a tall glass tower in Dubai, the newly elected Iranian presidential candidate and his bodyguards stepped into an elevator. They weren't alone. Already inside, leaning casually in the corner, was Mitch Rapp, alive, calm, and smiling politely. The smile said everything. The mission wasn't over. It never really is. You can survive war. You can survive betrayal. But if you're the man who made Mitch Rapp's list, you don't survive him.